German Shepherd interrupts wedding ceremony. When the bride discovers the reason, she bursts into tears. Emily stood before the antique full-length mirror, watching as her mother carefully adjusted the delicate lace veil that cascaded down her back. The morning light filtered through the stained glass windows of the bridal suite, casting prismatic patterns across her ivory gown. After months of meticulous planning, every detail was perfect, from the hand-tied bouquet of white roses and baby's breath to the pearl-encrusted hairpins securing her updo. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us from which city you're watching us. Stay tuned. "You look absolutely breathtaking, sweetheart," her mother whispered, her eyes glistening with emotion. Emily smiled, trying to calm the butterflies in her stomach. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, yet something felt oddly incomplete. A soft whimper drew her attention to the corner of the room, where Ranger, her faithful German Shepherd, lay on his favorite blanket. The elderly dog had been unusually subdued all morning, his normally alert ears drooping slightly. Emily had insisted on having him at the wedding venue. After all, he'd been by her side through every major milestone of her adult life. "Just a few more minutes, boy," she cooed, earning a gentle tail wag from her loyal companion. The wedding coordinator poked her head through the door, clipboard in hand, announcing that the guests were seated and everything was ready to begin. Emily's father appeared, dashing in his tailored tuxedo, ready to walk her down the aisle. The familiar strains of the wedding march began to float through the air, and Emily's heart quickened. James, her soon-to-be husband, would be waiting at the altar, probably fidgeting with his cufflinks, a nervous habit she found endearing. The procession began smoothly. Bridesmaids in pale blue dresses glided down the aisle, followed by Emily's young cousin scattering rose petals. The gathered friends and family stood, turning expectantly toward the entrance. Emily took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and stepped forward, her father's arm steady beneath her hand. The church looked magical, exactly as she'd envisioned. Soft sunlight streaming through windows, white flowers adorning every pew, and James standing tall and handsome at the altar, his smile radiating pure joy. Everything was perfect, until it wasn't. A movement caught Emily's eye. Ranger had risen from his spot and was making his way toward her with an unusual urgency in his step. Before anyone could react, he positioned himself directly in her path, his aging body pressing against her legs with gentle but unmistakable pressure. "Ranger?" Emily whispered, confusion clouding her features. This wasn't like him at all. The well-trained dog had never interrupted an important moment before. The murmurs of the guests grew louder as the seconds ticked by. Emily's father tried to guide the dog aside, but Ranger stood his ground, his dark eyes fixed on Emily with an intensity that made her breath catch. There was something in that gaze, something desperate and pleading that she had never seen before. His chest heaved with irregular breaths, and she noticed a slight tremor in his legs. Memory after memory flashed through Emily's mind, Ranger as a timid puppy at the shelter, choosing him despite everyone suggesting a smaller breed. Countless nights spent together while she studied for her medical degree, his head resting on her lap. The morning after her first breakup, when his unwavering presence had been her only comfort. The day she met James in the park, where Ranger's playful interaction with him had sparked their first conversation. The weight of all those moments pressed against her heart as she watched her beloved companion struggle to stand. The wedding music continued to play, but it seemed distant now, as if coming from another world entirely. Emily felt tears welling up in her eyes, but not from the joy she'd expected to feel on this day. James had left his position at the altar and was making his way toward them, concern etched across his features. He knew how much Ranger meant to Emily. It was one of the things that had drawn them together, his understanding of the deep bond between a person and their four-legged family member. As the murmurs of confusion grew among the guests, Emily made a decision that would change everything. She knelt down, wedding dress and all, and wrapped her arms around Ranger's neck. His fur felt different, coarser, and she could feel the rapid beating of his heart against her chest. "Something's wrong," she said, looking up at James with tears in her eyes. "We need to get him to a vet right now." The silence in the church was deafening as everyone waited to see what would happen next. But for Emily, there was no question about what needed to be done. Sometimes love means making impossible choices, and sometimes it means recognizing when something matters more than even your perfect day. The veterinary clinic's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Emily's face as she sat in the waiting room, still wearing her wedding dress. James had driven them there immediately, his steady hands on the wheel, betraying none of the turmoil that must have been going through his mind. Her parents had followed in another car, while her maid of honor stayed behind to handle the stunned wedding guests. Through the clinic's windows, Emily could see the perfect blue sky that should have witnessed her wedding vows. Instead, she found herself clutching Ranger's leash, watching as he lay with his head on her lap, his breathing still labored. The wedding dress, which had cost a small fortune, was now wrinkled and spotted with dirt, but Emily couldn't bring herself to care. "The doctor will see you now," a sympathetic nurse called, leading them into an examination room. Emily noticed how James immediately moved to help her up, supporting both her and Ranger as they made their way inside. His quiet strength in this moment made her heart swell with gratitude. The examination seemed to last forever. Dr. Anderson, a kind-faced woman with graying hair, performed test after test, her expression growing more serious with each passing minute. Emily's parents waited outside, her mother periodically sending supportive text messages. The rest of the wedding party had dispersed, with promises to be there whenever Emily needed them. "I need to be honest with you," Dr. Anderson finally said, removing her stethoscope. "Ranger's heart is failing. The symptoms you've described, combined with these test results, indicate severe cardiac issues. He needs immediate treatment and constant monitoring." Emily felt James's hand tighten around hers. Her mind raced back to all the subtle signs she might have missed. Ranger's decreased energy during their morning walks, his reluctance to climb stairs, the way he'd been sleeping more than usual. How had she not noticed sooner? "He knew," Emily whispered, tears streaming down her face. "He knew something was wrong, and he chose today to tell me. He waited until he knew I would listen." James pulled her close, his wedding suit jacket still smelling faintly of the boutonniere he'd worn. "He's always been the smartest dog I've known," he said softly. "Remember how he practically introduced us at the park?" The memory brought a watery smile to Emily's face. Ranger had been the one to approach James that day, breaking all his usual habits of staying close to Emily. It was as if he'd known, even then, that James was special. Dr. Anderson cleared her throat gently. "We need to start treatment immediately. The next 24 hours will be crucial. I understand this is, well, an unusual situation." She gestured at their formal attire. "But I need to know if you want to proceed with hospitalization." Before Emily could respond, the door opened and her parents entered the room. Her father, still in his tuxedo, looked oddly out of place among the medical equipment. Her mother's carefully styled hair was coming undone, but her eyes were clear and determined. "We've been talking," her father said, looking at Emily and James, "and we think we have a solution. If Dr. Anderson agrees, we could have the ceremony here." Emily blinked in surprise, looking at James. His face showed nothing but love and understanding as he squeezed her hand. "After all," he said with a gentle smile, "we already have the rings. The officiant is still waiting for our call, and the most important guests are right here." Dr. Anderson's eyes softened. "As long as we can work around the medical equipment and keep Ranger stable, I don't see why not. We can set up the treatment in a way that allows him to be present." Emily looked around the sterile room, so different from the beautiful church she'd spent months preparing. The fluorescent lights were a poor substitute for candlelight, and the antiseptic smell was far from the fragrant flowers she'd chosen. But as she watched Ranger's tail wag weakly at the sound of her voice, she realized that this was exactly where they needed to be. Her mother was already on the phone, coordinating with the officiant and a few close family members. Her father stepped out to bring in the small box containing the rings, which he'd kept safe in his pocket. James began helping the nurse clear some space in the room, his movements sure and purposeful, despite the surreal situation. Looking down at her wrinkled wedding dress, Emily felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. This wasn't the perfect wedding she'd planned, but somehow it felt more right than anything else could have been. Because true love, she was learning, wasn't about perfect moments or carefully orchestrated events. It was about being there when it mattered most, about choosing what truly matters when the moment of choice arrives. The transformation of the veterinary examination room happened with surprising speed and efficiency. Emily's mother, ever the organizer, had managed to salvage some of the wedding decorations, draping white fabric over medical equipment and arranging a few bouquets of flowers that someone had thought to bring from the church. The harsh fluorescent lights were dimmed, and someone had found battery-operated candles that cast a warm, gentle glow around the room. Ranger lay on his bed, now adorned with a white ribbon, monitoring equipment beeping softly beside him. Dr. Anderson had started his treatment, but arranged everything so he could remain an integral part of the ceremony. The elderly German shepherd's eyes followed Emily's movements as she helped arrange the makeshift altar, his tail thumping weakly against the floor whenever she came near. The officiant, Reverend Mitchell, arrived still wearing his ceremonial robes. His kind eyes took in the unusual scene. Medical charts on the walls, instead of stained glass windows, the smell of antiseptic mixing with flower perfume, and a small group of people in formal wear crowded into a veterinary clinic. Instead of showing surprise, he simply smiled and began helping to arrange chairs. "You know," he said to Emily as they worked, "in 30 years of performing weddings, this might be the most meaningful ceremony I've ever been part of." James's parents arrived next, his mother immediately embracing Emily with tears in her eyes. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, "James told us everything. We wouldn't miss this for the world." His father, a typically reserved man, knelt down beside Ranger and gently stroked the dog's head, murmuring soft words of encouragement. The small space quickly filled with an intimate group of family members and closest friends. Emily's best friend Sarah had managed to save the wedding rings and brought them along with a handful of rose petals she'd gathered from the church. The maid of honor and best man stood ready, their formal attire slightly rumpled, but their faces beaming with support. As Emily took a moment to change into a fresh dress, a simple white sundress her mother had quickly purchased from a nearby boutique, she heard gentle laughter and quiet conversation from the makeshift wedding venue. The sound brought tears to her eyes, but they were different from the tears of distress she'd shed earlier. These were tears of gratitude, of overwhelming love for the people who understood that some things were more important than perfect plans. When she emerged, James was waiting for her in the hallway. He'd removed his tie and jacket, rolling up his sleeves in the warm room. "You look beautiful," he said softly, taking her hands in his. "And I want you to know something. This right here means more to me than any fancy ceremony ever could, because this is who you are, Emily. This is the woman I fell in love with, someone who listens to her heart and knows what really matters." Emily squeezed his hands, unable to speak for a moment. Through the doorway, she could see Ranger watching them, his dark eyes bright despite his condition. The monitoring equipment showed his heart rate was stable, and Dr. Anderson gave them an encouraging nod. "Shall we?" James asked, gesturing toward their unconventional wedding venue. The ceremony itself was nothing like what Emily had planned, yet it was everything a wedding should be. Reverend Mitchell spoke about love in all its forms, not just between husband and wife, but the kind of love that makes us better people, that teaches us to put others first, that shows us what truly matters in life. As they exchanged vows, Ranger lay at their feet, his presence a testament to the journey that had brought them all here. Emily's voice shook as she promised to love and cherish James, adding her own words about how his understanding and support had only made her love him more. James, in turn, spoke of how Emily's capacity for love, for humans and animals alike, had shown him what real devotion looked like. The small group of witnesses dabbed at their eyes as the couple exchanged rings. The simple gold bands caught the light of the electric candles, gleaming with promise. When Reverend Mitchell pronounced them husband and wife, the tiny room erupted in cheers and applause, the sound mingling with the steady beep of medical equipment in a strange but perfect harmony. Dr. Anderson, who had remained professionally discreet throughout the ceremony, stepped forward to check on Ranger. Her smile was genuine as she adjusted his medication. "Someone clearly wanted to be here for this moment," she said softly, patting the dog's side. "And I think he made the right choice." Looking around the room at the faces of their loved ones, at the makeshift decorations and medical equipment, at her beloved dog who had changed everything, Emily realized that sometimes the most perfect moments are the ones we never planned for. They're the ones that show us what we're made of, that reveal the true depth of love and support surrounding us. The days following the impromptu wedding took on a rhythm of their own, far different from the honeymoon Emily and James had planned in the Maldives. Instead of white sandy beaches and crystal-clear waters, their first week as newlyweds was spent in a careful dance between their apartment and the veterinary clinic, where Ranger remained under close observation. Dr. Anderson had developed a comprehensive treatment plan, combining medication with careful monitoring. The clinic staff had grown fond of their unusual patient and the devoted couple who visited multiple times each day. They'd even set up a small corner in Ranger's room with comfortable chairs and a coffee maker, understanding that Emily and James would spend long hours there. "You should have seen him this morning," Sarah, one of the veterinary nurses, told Emily as she checked Ranger's vitals. "He perked right up when we played that recording of your voice you left." The elderly German shepherd, hearing Emily's voice in person now, lifted his head and offered a gentle tail wag, his eyes never leaving her face. James had thrown himself into research, spending hours reading about canine cardiac conditions and potential treatments. His laptop was constantly open, filled with medical articles and forums about helping aging dogs maintain their quality of life. Emily found him one evening, surrounded by printouts and notes, fast asleep with his reading glasses still perched on his nose. "You know," she said later after waking him with a gentle kiss, "this isn't exactly how I imagined starting our married life." James pulled her close, his voice soft but firm. "Maybe not, but it's exactly where we need to be. Remember what you told me when we first started dating? About how Ranger was your rock through med school?" Emily nodded, remembering those long nights of study, with Ranger's steady presence keeping her company. He'd somehow always known when she needed a break, nudging her hand or bringing his toy just when her concentration was starting to fade. "He got me through some of the toughest times of my life," she whispered. "Then it's our turn to be there for him," James replied, his fingers gently stroking her hair. "Besides, I think we're learning more about each other in these few days than we might have in 2 weeks at a resort." He was right. The crisis had revealed new layers to their relationship, showing them how they handled stress, supported each other, and worked as a team. Their shared concern for Ranger had brought them closer in ways they hadn't expected. The apartment felt different too. They'd rearranged furniture to make it easier for Ranger to navigate when he came home, setting up comfortable beds in several rooms. Their wedding gifts remained unopened, stacked neatly in a corner. Neither of them had the heart to go through them yet, though Emily's mother kept insisting they should at least open a few. One evening, as they sat in the clinic with Ranger, Dr. Anderson shared some cautiously optimistic news. The medication was showing positive effects, and while Ranger's condition was serious, they were seeing small improvements. "He's responding well to treatment," she explained, showing them the latest test results. "His spirit is strong, and that counts for a lot." Emily and James exchanged glances, hope blooming in their hearts. They'd learned to celebrate small victories. A slightly stronger tail wag, a few more steps during the supervised walking sessions, a better appetite. Each tiny improvement felt like a gift. Their friends and family had been incredibly supportive, organizing a rotation to help with everyday tasks so the newlyweds could focus on Ranger. Emily's best friend kept their fridge stocked with home-cooked meals, while James's brother handled their dry cleaning and errands. Even their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, contributed by collecting their mail and keeping a watchful eye on their apartment. One particularly touching moment came when Emily's father arrived at the clinic with a small photo album. He'd taken pictures during their unique wedding ceremony and had them professionally printed. The images captured something extraordinary, not just a wedding, but a testament to unconditional love. There were shots of Ranger watching the ceremony with devoted eyes, of James supporting Emily as she knelt to comfort her beloved pet, of their small group of guests wiping away tears and smiling through them. "You know," her father said, his voice gruff with emotion, "when you were little you used to dream about a fairy tale wedding. But looking at these photos, I think you got something better, a real love story." As Emily flipped through the album, Ranger's head resting against her knee, she realized her father was right. Their wedding hadn't been the picture-perfect celebration she'd planned, but it had been authentic, raw, and beautiful in its own way. It had shown them what they were capable of as a couple, how their love could adapt and grow stronger in the face of challenges. The autumn leaves were starting to turn when Ranger was finally cleared to return home. Emily and James had spent the previous day preparing everything, laying down non-slip mats on the hardwood floors, setting up the special orthopedic bed Dr. Anderson had recommended, and organizing Ranger's medications in a carefully labeled pill organizer. The moment they brought him through the door, both held their breath, watching as he slowly took in his familiar surroundings. Despite his weakened state, his tail gave a gentle wag as he made his way to his favorite spot by the living room window. The sunlight streaming through the glass warmed his graying fur, and he settled down with a contented sigh that brought tears to Emily's eyes. "Welcome home, boy," James whispered, kneeling beside him. The bond between them had grown stronger during Ranger's hospital stay. James had spent countless hours sitting with him, reading aloud from newspapers or simply talking about his day while Emily was at work. The elderly German shepherd now looked at James with the same devotion he'd always shown Emily. Their daily routine took on a new rhythm, centered around Ranger's care schedule. Emily had arranged with her medical practice to work reduced hours, handling more telemedicine appointments from home. James, who worked as a software developer, had already been working remotely and set up his workspace in the living room to keep Ranger company. "You know what?" Emily said one evening, as they sat on the floor beside Ranger, sharing takeout dinner. "I think this whole experience has taught me something important about love." James looked up from his pad thai, curious. "What's that?" "It's not just about the big moments or grand gestures. It's about being there, day after day, choosing to face whatever comes together." She reached out to stroke Ranger's ear, smiling as he leaned into her touch. "Look at us. We're spending our newlywed phase administering medications and monitoring heart rates, and somehow it feels exactly right." Their friends had been amazingly supportive, though some didn't quite understand their dedication. Emily's college roommate had called, gently suggesting they should still take a short honeymoon, offering to dog sit. But both Emily and James knew they couldn't bear to be away from Ranger for more than a few hours. The good days were precious. On those days, Ranger would have enough energy for short walks in the park across the street. They would move slowly, stopping frequently to rest, but the fresh air and familiar scents seemed to rejuvenate him. Other dog owners in the neighborhood, who had known Ranger for years, would stop to greet him gently, their own pets seeming to understand the need for calm interactions. Even on harder days, when Ranger's energy was low and his breathing more labored, there were moments of pure joy. Like the morning they found him attempting to reach his old tennis ball under the couch, or the evening he managed to climb onto their bed, against doctor's orders, just to lie between them like he used to. Dr. Anderson made regular house calls, monitoring his progress and adjusting treatments as needed. During one visit, she watched as Ranger followed Emily and James around the apartment, refusing to let either of them out of his sight. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "in all my years of veterinary medicine, I've never seen such a strong bond between a dog and his humans. It's as if he's holding on for you, making every moment count." The comment stuck with Emily, making her reflect on all the years Ranger had been her guardian and friend. He'd been there through every major life change: graduation, first job, heartbreaks, and finally meeting and marrying James. Now, in his time of need, they were returning that unwavering loyalty. One particularly memorable evening, they decided to have a small celebration of their unique family. Emily's mother had brought over a homemade dinner, and James had set up a cozy picnic on the living room floor so Ranger could easily join them. They shared stories about Ranger's younger days, his puppy adventures, the time he crashed Emily's first attempt at online dating by barking at the camera during a video call, and how he'd practically orchestrated her meeting with James. As they sat there, surrounded by the warmth of love and memories, Emily noticed Ranger watching them with those wise, understanding eyes. Despite his condition, there was still so much life and love in his gaze. She realized that every day with him was a gift, a lesson in what truly matters in life. James seemed to read her thoughts, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "We're going to make every day special," he promised, his voice soft but determined, "for all of us." The evening light cast long shadows across the floor, but their little corner remained bright with shared love and purpose. They had created something beautiful out of an unexpected situation. Not just a marriage, but a testament to the power of unconditional love in all its forms. As winter approached, Emily and James settled into a routine that revolved around making each day meaningful for Ranger. Their apartment had become a sanctuary of comfort and care, with thoughtful adaptations for their aging companion. The Christmas tree they set up was smaller than planned, placed strategically to leave clear pathways for Ranger to navigate easily through the living room. The holiday season brought new challenges and unexpected joys. Family gatherings had to be carefully planned around Ranger's medication schedule and energy levels. But rather than seeing this as a limitation, their families adapted with remarkable grace. Holiday dinners became intimate affairs in Emily and James's apartment, with everyone gathering around Ranger's favorite spot near the window. "I never thought our first Christmas as a married couple would look like this," Emily confessed one evening, as she and James sat on the floor next to Ranger, wrapping presents. The German Shepherd watched them with interested eyes, occasionally pawing at the wrapping paper. James paused in his rather clumsy attempt at tying a bow. "Would you change it, if you could?" Emily looked around their living room, taking in the sight of their modified celebration. Instead of elaborate decorations, they had simple, warm lights that didn't overwhelm Ranger's sensitive eyes. The coffee table had been converted into a medication station with perfectly organized pills and charts. Yet somehow, it all felt perfectly right. "Not for anything in the world," she replied, reaching out to scratch behind Ranger's ears. The elderly dog leaned into her touch, his tail thumping softly against the floor. Their friends had been amazingly supportive, though some still struggled to understand their choices. Sarah, Emily's best friend from college, had dropped by with holiday cookies and couldn't help but comment on their changed lifestyle. "Remember how we used to talk about your first year of marriage?" she asked Emily, while helping to organize Ranger's medication. "All those plans for traveling and adventures?" Emily smiled, watching as Ranger accepted a gentle pat from Sarah. "This is an adventure too," she replied. "Just a different kind than we expected. It's teaching us things about love and commitment that I don't think we could have learned any other way." James had proven to be an unexpected source of creative solutions for their daily challenges. He'd developed a spreadsheet to track Ranger's good days and symptoms, helping them identify patterns that might affect his comfort. On days when Ranger's energy was higher, they'd created a ritual of indoor adventures, setting up small obstacle courses with pillows and blankets that allowed him to explore safely. Dr. Anderson continued her regular visits, always impressed by their dedication. During one checkup, she found James lying on the floor next to Ranger, reading aloud from a novel, while Emily worked on patient charts nearby. "You know," she said after completing her examination, "what you're doing here is quite extraordinary. Many people would have struggled with such a dramatic change to their newlywed life, but you've turned it into something beautiful." The truth was, their love had grown stronger through this experience. They'd learned to communicate in new ways, to anticipate each other's needs, and to find joy in the smallest moments. Every morning when Ranger greeted them with a tail wag, every successful medication routine, every peaceful nap in the sunlight became a celebration. One particularly memorable evening, they decided to recreate their first date. Instead of going to the restaurant where they'd originally met for dinner, they ordered takeout from the same place and set up a picnic in the living room. Ranger lay beside them, contentedly accepting small bites of plain chicken that Dr. Anderson had approved. "Do you remember," James asked, "how Ranger practically pushed me into you that day at the park?" Emily laughed, the sound bright in the warm room. "He'd never done anything like that before. It was like he knew you were special." The memory sparked a conversation about all the ways Ranger had shaped their relationship. He'd been there for their first kiss, had helped James plan the proposal by carrying the ring box in his collar, and had ultimately transformed their wedding into something far more meaningful than they could have imagined. As the evening grew later, they found themselves sharing dreams and fears about the future. The uncertainty of Ranger's condition had taught them to value each moment, while still hoping for many more to come. Their conversation was punctuated by the steady sound of Ranger's breathing and the occasional jingle of his collar as he shifted position. "I think," James said thoughtfully, "that Ranger's teaching us something profound about love. It's not just about the big moments or the perfect plans. It's about being present, about choosing each other every day, about finding beauty in the ordinary moments." Emily leaned against him, watching as Ranger dozed peacefully beside them. "He's teaching us how to love better," she agreed. "Not just him, but each other too." In the soft glow of their holiday lights, surrounded by the evidence of their modified but beautiful life, they understood that they were part of something extraordinary. Their first months of marriage might not have followed the traditional script, but they were writing their own story, one of deep love, unwavering commitment, and the kind of bond that transforms challenges into blessings. The January snow fell softly outside their apartment window as Emily sat at her desk, finally opening the last of their wedding cards. The stack had remained untouched for months, as their attention had been focused entirely on Ranger's care. Each envelope contained messages of congratulations and hopes for their future, written before anyone knew how their wedding day would unfold. "Listen to this one," she called to James, who was preparing Ranger's evening medications in the kitchen. "Your Aunt Martha wrote that she hopes we have a conventional and proper start to our marriage." She couldn't help but laugh at the irony. James appeared in the doorway, medicine chart in hand. Well, I'd say we've had something better than conventional, he replied, watching as Ranger slowly made his way from his bed to Emily's side. The elderly German shepherd's movements were careful but determined, his loyalty unchanged by his condition. The past months had transformed their lives in ways they never expected. Their apartment had become a testament to their journey. Medical supplies, organized neatly alongside wedding photos, get-well cards mixed with wedding congratulations on the refrigerator, and Ranger's various beds strategically placed throughout each room. Emily's medical practice had been understanding about her modified schedule, especially after learning the full story. Her patients often asked about Ranger, and she found herself sharing the lessons she'd learned about love and dedication. Some even sent small gifts for him, special treats or soft blankets that now added to their collection. One evening, as they sat together on the couch with Ranger between them, Emily found herself reflecting on their unconventional start as newlyweds. "You know what's strange," she said, running her fingers through Ranger's fur. "I used to think I knew exactly what love looked like. All those plans I had for the perfect wedding, the perfect honeymoon." James reached across to take her hand. "And now? Now I know that love looks like this. Like choosing to be there for each other, like finding joy in the small moments, like rearranging your entire life because something matters more than your plans." Dr. Anderson's latest visit had brought cautiously optimistic news. While Ranger's condition was still serious, the combination of medications and devoted care had helped stabilize him. "It's remarkable," she had said, reviewing his charts. "His will to live is extraordinary, but so is the environment of love you've created for him." The winter days fell into a gentle rhythm. On good days, they would take short walks in the fresh snow, Ranger's paw prints leaving trails beside their footsteps. James had bought a special coat to keep him warm, and the sight of the dignified German shepherd in his winter gear often drew smiles from neighbors. Their families had adapted beautifully to their new normal. Sunday dinners became a rotating affair, with everyone taking turns hosting at Emily and James's apartment to keep Ranger comfortable. These gatherings were filled with laughter, stories, and the kind of deep appreciation for family that only comes through sharing both joy and challenges. One particularly cold evening, as they huddled together under blankets watching old movies, Emily noticed something remarkable. Despite his weaker state, Ranger's eyes still held the same brightness, the same loving attention he'd always shown. He watched their every movement, responded to their voices, and seemed to understand the depth of their commitment to him. "I've been thinking," James said during a quiet moment between films. "Remember how worried we were about starting our marriage this way? How everyone kept saying we should try to have a normal newlywed experience?" Emily nodded, remembering the well-meaning but misguided advice they'd received. "But look at what we've learned," he continued. "We've learned how to be a team, how to face challenges together, how to find joy in the smallest victories. Ranger's taught us more about love and marriage than any honeymoon could have." The truth of his words settled deep in Emily's heart. Their living room, with its medical supplies and adapted furniture, had become more than just a space. It was a sanctuary of love in its purest form. The way James checked on Ranger throughout the day, the gentle way he helped with medications, the patience he showed during difficult moments, it all revealed the depth of his character and the strength of their bond. Even their wedding album, when Emily finally found the courage to look through it properly, told a story far more beautiful than the one she'd originally planned. The photos captured raw emotion, unwavering commitment, and the kind of love that transcends perfect decorations or carefully choreographed moments. As the evening grew later, Ranger shifted slightly to rest his head on Emily's lap, his favorite position since puppyhood. The gesture, so familiar and precious, brought tears to her eyes. Each day with him was a gift, each moment a lesson in what truly mattered in life. As February melted into March, the first signs of spring began to appear outside their apartment window. Emily and James had developed an almost telepathic understanding of each other's needs and Ranger's care routine. Their love had deepened in ways they never expected, forged in the quiet moments of dedication and unwavering support. One particularly memorable morning, Emily woke to find James already up, sitting on the floor next to Ranger's bed, softly reading from his tablet. It had become his morning ritual, sharing news, stories, or sometimes just quiet conversation with their faithful companion while Emily slept a little longer. The sight of them together, bathed in early morning light, captured everything their life had become. "You know what today is?" James asked, looking up as Emily joined them on the floor. Ranger's tail thumped gently against the carpet in greeting. Emily smiled, reaching out to stroke Ranger's ear. 6 months since our wedding day. 6 months since this brave boy showed us what really matters. The anniversary had sparked deep reflection for both of them. That morning, over coffee and Ranger's medication routine, they talked about how different their lives were from what they'd planned, yet how perfect it felt in its own way. "I found our original honeymoon itinerary yesterday," James mentioned, carefully measuring out Ranger's morning pills. "All those elaborate plans for the Maldives, scuba diving, sunset cruises, beachfront dinners." Emily watched as Ranger accepted his medications, marveling at how their daily routine had become a dance of love and care. "And look at us now, experts at pill pockets and heart monitoring, celebrating when he has enough energy for a walk around the block." "I wouldn't change a thing," James said firmly, and Emily knew he meant it. Their life together had taken an unexpected turn, but it had shaped them into better partners, better people. Dr. Henderson's latest visit had brought more cautiously positive news. While Ranger's condition remained serious, his stability had improved. "Whatever you're doing," she had said, reviewing his charts, "keep doing it. The love in this home is the best medicine he could ask for." They had learned to celebrate the small victories. Days when Ranger showed more energy, when he managed to climb onto the couch, even though he wasn't supposed to. When his appetite was particularly good. Each moment became precious, each day a gift to be treasured. Their families had noticed the change in them too. During a Sunday dinner at their apartment, Emily's mother pulled her aside, tears in her eyes. "You know," she said, watching James help Ranger settle into his favorite spot, "when all this first happened, I was worried about how it would affect your marriage. But watching you both now, this is what real love looks like." The apartment had become a testament to their journey. Wedding gifts finally unpacked were mixed with Ranger's medical supplies, creating a unique blend of their shared life. Photos from their unconventional wedding day hung alongside pictures of their daily moments. Ranger dozing in sunbeams, family gatherings around his bed, quiet evenings spent together. One evening, as they sat together on their small balcony, Ranger resting between them, Emily found herself thinking about all the ways their love had grown. "Remember how everyone kept telling us the first year of marriage would be about adjusting to each other?" she asked, watching the sunset paint the sky in soft colors. James nodded, his hand finding hers across Ranger's back. "Instead, we learned to adjust together for something bigger than ourselves." The truth was, their experience had taught them lessons about marriage that most couples took years to learn. They discovered the importance of flexibility, of supporting each other through unexpected challenges, of finding joy in simple moments. Their friends had started to understand too. The initial concerns about their sacrificed honeymoon period had given way to admiration for the depth of their commitment, not just to each other, but to the values they shared. Sarah, who had once worried they were missing out on newlywed experiences, now regularly joined them for quiet evenings at home. "There's something special here," she'd observed during her last visit, watching them work in perfect synchronization to care for Ranger. "You've created your own kind of paradise." As the spring evening drew to a close, they moved back inside, helping Ranger to his favorite bed near the window. The elderly German shepherd settled in with a contented sigh, his eyes following their movements with unwavering devotion. 6 months, Emily mused, leaning against James as they watched Ranger drift off to sleep. 6 months of learning what love really means. James wrapped his arms around her, his voice soft but sure. And we're still learning every day. Ranger's been the best teacher we could have asked for. Spring had fully blossomed outside their apartment window, bringing with it a renewed sense of hope. The morning light filtered through newly leafed trees, creating dancing patterns on their living room floor, where Ranger lay in his favorite sunny spot. Emily and James had grown accustomed to measuring time not in weeks or months, but in moments, precious instances of joy, love, and quiet companionship. Dr. Anderson's visits had become more frequent as Ranger's condition required closer monitoring. Despite the challenges, the elderly German shepherd maintained his gentle spirit and unwavering devotion to his family. His eyes still lit up every time Emily or James entered the room, his tail offering weak but determined wags of greeting. "I've been thinking," James said one evening as they sat on the floor beside Ranger, sharing a quiet dinner. "Maybe we should take some time off work next week, just be here together." Emily looked up from her plate, understanding immediately. They had learned to read the subtle signs in Ranger's behavior, and lately those signs had been telling them to treasure every moment. "I'll call the clinic tomorrow," she agreed softly. Their families had sensed it too. Without any formal discussion, they began dropping by more frequently, bringing home-cooked meals and sharing stories of Ranger's younger days. Emily's mother brought over photo albums filled with memories. Ranger as a gangly puppy, his first Christmas with Emily, the day he met James at the park. "Remember this?" she asked, pointing to a photo of Ranger wearing a graduation cap alongside Emily at her medical school ceremony. "He wouldn't let anyone else hold his leash that day. It had to be you." The photos sparked a flood of memories. James recalled the day Ranger had first accepted him, moving from his usual protective stance to actually seeking out his attention. "It was like getting approval from the most important member of the family," he said, scratching behind Ranger's ears. Their apartment had become a sanctuary of love and memories. The medical supplies were still there, carefully organized and monitored, but they were now surrounded by photos, cards, and small mementos of their journey together. Each corner held a story. Each moment became more precious. One particularly beautiful afternoon, they decided to have a small gathering in their apartment. Close family and friends came together, bringing Ranger's favorite treats and sharing stories of how he had touched their lives. The elderly dog lay contentedly in his bed, surrounded by love and attention, his eyes moving from person to person, as if memorizing each face. Sarah, who had known Ranger since Emily's college days, sat next to him and gently stroked his fur. "You know," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "he's taught us all something about love, the way he changed your wedding day. It wasn't just about stopping the ceremony. It was about showing us what really matters." Emily and James had learned to find beauty in the smallest moments. The way Ranger still tried to follow them from room to room, how he perked up at the sound of their voices, the peaceful sighs he made when they sat with him during quiet evenings. They had created a routine that revolved around his comfort, finding joy in the simple act of being together. Dr. Anderson visited again, her gentle presence a comfort as she checked Ranger's vital signs. "The love in this home," she observed, watching how Ranger responded to Emily and James's voices. "It's the most powerful medicine there is." That evening, as the sun set and cast long shadows across their living room, Emily and James sat on either side of Ranger's bed. The elderly German shepherd lay between them, his breathing steady but shallow. James had brought out Ranger's favorite tennis ball, worn and faded from years of play, and placed it within easy reach. "You changed our lives, buddy," James whispered, his hand resting gently on Ranger's side. "You showed us what real love looks like." Emily leaned down to kiss Ranger's forehead, remembering the frightened puppy she'd adopted all those years ago. "You've been there for everything," she said softly. "Every important moment, every hard decision, every celebration and every tear." The evening grew quiet around them, broken only by the gentle sound of Ranger's breathing and the distant songs of spring birds. Their lives had been transformed in ways they never expected, but as they sat there together, they understood that they had been part of something extraordinary. The warmth of early summer filled their apartment, bringing with it gentle breezes and the sweet scent of blooming flowers from the park across the street. Emily and James had taken to leaving the windows open, allowing Ranger to enjoy the familiar sounds and smells from his comfortable bed. The elderly German shepherd's eyes would follow the movement of birds outside, his ears perking up at the sound of children playing in the distance. Their lives had settled into a rhythm that felt both precious and profound. Every morning began with gentle care, medications carefully measured, soft words of encouragement, and endless patience. James had permanently moved his work setup to the floor beside Ranger's bed, his laptop balanced on a cushion as he typed code one-handed, the other always within reach of his faithful friend. Emily had reduced her patient load significantly, arranging her schedule to spend maximum time at home. Her medical colleagues had been incredibly understanding, many of them having met Ranger during happier days when he would accompany her to staff picnics and holiday parties. "I received something special in the mail today," Emily said one evening, pulling out an envelope from her bag. She sat down next to Ranger, who lifted his head slightly at her voice. "Remember Linda, the little girl who used to be afraid of dogs until she met you at the clinic?" James smiled, remembering the story of how Ranger's gentle nature had helped the young patient overcome her fear. Emily opened the envelope, revealing a carefully drawn picture of a German shepherd wearing what appeared to be a superhero cape. "Dear Dr. Emily and Mr. James," she read aloud, "I heard that Ranger isn't feeling well. I wanted to tell him that he's my hero because he helped me not be scared anymore. I hope he feels better soon. Love, Linda." The wall near Ranger's bed had become a collage of such memories, cards from well-wishers, photos from their unique wedding day, and drawings from Emily's young patients who had come to know and love Ranger over the years. Each item told a story of lives touched and hearts changed by one remarkable dog. Dr. Anderson's latest visit had been both professional and personal. After checking Ranger's vitals and adjusting his medications, she had stayed for a cup of tea, sharing stories of other animals who had shown similar strength and spirit. "You know," she said, watching as Ranger dozed peacefully between Emily and James, "in my 30 years of practice, I've never seen such a perfect example of what love can do. You've given him everything, but he's given you something equally precious. He's shown you the true meaning of commitment." The truth of her words resonated deeply. Their first year of marriage had been nothing like they'd planned, yet it had taught them lessons that many couples never learn. They had discovered the strength of their bond through countless nights of shared worry and care, through decisions made together, through tears and smiles and quiet moments of simply being present. One particularly beautiful evening, they decided to have a small celebration, not for any specific occasion, but simply to honor the love that filled their home. Their families gathered, bringing simple dishes and soft blankets. They set up cushions around Ranger's bed, creating a cozy circle of warmth and affection. Emily's father, usually a man of few words, surprised everyone by raising his glass in a toast. "To love," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not the kind we read about in books or see in movies, but the real kind. The kind that changes plans without regret, that finds joy in simple moments, that grows stronger through challenges." James squeezed Emily's hand as they watched Ranger accept gentle pets from their loved ones. The elderly dog's tail would still wag at each familiar voice, his eyes bright with recognition and affection. Later that night, after everyone had left, Emily and James sat in their usual spots beside Ranger. The streetlights cast a soft glow through the windows, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of summer flowers. "Do you ever wonder," Emily asked softly, "what our lives would be like if things had gone according to plan? If we'd had our perfect wedding day and gone on our honeymoon?" James thought for a moment, his hand resting gently on Ranger's side. "I think we would have had a beautiful wedding and a wonderful trip," he said slowly. "We would have taken lots of pictures and made great memories. But we wouldn't have learned what we know now." "And what's that?" Emily asked, though she already knew the answer in her heart. "That love isn't about perfect moments or carefully planned celebrations. It's about being there for each other, about choosing each other every day, about finding beauty in the hardest times." He looked down at Ranger, who had shifted slightly to press closer to them. "It's about understanding that family comes in all forms, and that sometimes the greatest gifts come in the most unexpected packages." The summer days grew longer, filling their apartment with golden light that seemed to bless their little family with its warmth. Emily and James had learned to measure life's richness, not in grand events or milestone moments, but in the quiet beats of love that filled their days. Ranger remained the center of their world, his presence a constant reminder of what truly mattered. Dr. Anderson's visits had become more frequent, her gentle manner and professional expertise a comfort to them all. During her latest checkup, she had noticed something remarkable. "Despite everything," she said, adjusting Ranger's medications, "his spirit remains so strong. It's as if he's holding on to every moment, just like you are." The observation struck a chord with Emily and James. They had indeed learned to cherish each second, finding beauty in the smallest details, the way Ranger's ears still perked up at the sound of their voices, how his tail would wag softly when they sat beside him, the peaceful sighs he made when they stroked his fur. One particularly memorable evening, as the setting sun painted their living room in shades of amber and rose, Emily found James sitting on the floor next to Ranger's bed, looking through their wedding album. The photos told a story far different from what they'd planned, but infinitely more meaningful. "Look at this one," James said softly, pointing to a picture of Ranger watching their impromptu ceremony in the veterinary clinic. "See how he's looking at us? Even then, he was teaching us about love." Emily settled beside them, her hand automatically finding its place on Ranger's side, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. "He's taught us so much," she agreed. "About patience, about dedication, about what it means to truly love someone." Their families had noticed the transformation in them. During a quiet Sunday visit, Emily's mother had pulled her aside, tears in her eyes. "You know," she whispered, watching James tenderly adjust Ranger's blanket, "when all this first happened, I worried about how it would affect your marriage. But now I see this wasn't just about taking care of Ranger. It was about becoming who you were meant to be." The truth of those words resonated deeply. Their first year of marriage had been nothing like the fairy tale they'd imagined, yet it had given them something far more valuable. They had learned to face challenges together, to find strength in vulnerability, to celebrate the smallest victories and support each other through the hardest moments. Their apartment had become a sanctuary of love and memories. Photos lined the walls. Ranger in his younger days, running through parks and playing with toys. The day he first met James. Their unique wedding ceremony. Countless quiet moments of their life together. Each image told a story of unconditional love and unwavering loyalty. One evening, as they sat together in their usual spots beside Ranger, Emily found herself reflecting on their journey. "Remember when we thought our wedding day was ruined?" she asked, running her fingers through Ranger's soft fur. James smiled, reaching across to take her hand. Instead, it became the most perfect day possible. Because it showed us what real love looks like. They had learned to read every subtle sign in Ranger's behavior, to anticipate his needs before he expressed them. Their communication had grown beyond words, becoming a dance of understanding and devotion that encompassed all three of them. Dr. Anderson had remarked on this during her last visit. "What you've created here," she said, watching their synchronized care routine, "is something extraordinary. This isn't just about medical treatment, it's about the healing power of love." The summer evening wrapped around them like a warm embrace as they sat together, their little family complete in its own special way. Through the open window, they could hear the distant sounds of children playing in the park, the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze, the soft melody of birds settling in for the night. "You know what I've realized," James said, his voice thoughtful in the gathering dusk. "Ranger didn't just change our wedding day. He changed our entire understanding of what marriage means." Emily looked at him questioningly, though she felt she already knew what he meant. "He showed us that love isn't about perfect moments or carefully planned celebrations. It's about being there for each other, no matter what. It's about finding beauty in the ordinary days, strength in the difficult ones, and joy in simply being together." Ranger shifted slightly, pressing closer to them both, his presence a testament to the truth of James's words. His eyes, though tired, still held the same depth of love they'd always shown, reflecting back the devotion that surrounded him. The gentle warmth of a late summer morning filled their apartment, casting soft golden light across the hardwood floors. Emily and James sat beside Ranger, their hands intertwined as they watched the sunrise together. The elderly German shepherd rested peacefully between them, his breathing slow but steady, his presence as precious as ever. Over the past months, they had learned to treasure these quiet moments, finding profound meaning in the simple act of being together. Their love had deepened in ways they never imagined possible, shaped by the challenges they'd faced and the unconditional devotion they shared. "I've been thinking," Emily said softly, her free hand gently stroking Ranger's fur, "about how much he's changed our lives, how he showed us what really matters." James nodded, understanding flowing between them without need for further words. Their journey together had taught them lessons about love that went far beyond what they could have learned in any other way. Dr. Anderson's final visit had been filled with both professional care and personal warmth. She had watched them work together, moving in perfect synchronization to ensure Ranger's comfort, and saw in their actions the pure essence of devotion. "What you've created here," she had said, her voice gentle with emotion, "is something remarkable. You've shown what it means to love completely, without reservation." The summer breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers through their open windows, and Ranger's ears perked slightly at the familiar sounds of the neighborhood coming to life. His spirit remained strong, even as his body grew weaker, his love for them unchanging through it all. Emily and James had spent countless hours by his side, sharing stories, memories, and quiet moments of companionship. Their families visited regularly, bringing comfort and support, understanding the depth of what was happening in that small apartment. One particularly poignant afternoon, Emily's father had sat beside Ranger, his usual stoic demeanor softened by emotion. "You know," he said, watching his daughter and son-in-law care for their beloved pet, "sometimes the greatest love stories aren't the ones we plan. They're the ones that find us." As the morning light grew stronger, Emily and James reminisced about their journey, from the day Ranger first brought them together in the park to their transformed wedding day, through all the moments of care and dedication that had shaped their first year of marriage. "He taught us so much," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "About love, about commitment, about what it means to be a family. Emily smiled through her tears, remembering the frightened puppy she'd adopted all those years ago, who had grown into the loyal companion who had changed their lives so profoundly. Later that day, they made a decision that felt right in their hearts. Together, they visited the same shelter where Emily had found Ranger. Walking down the familiar corridors, they came to a stop in front of a kennel where an elderly golden retriever lay on a worn blanket. The dog lifted its head as they approached, its eyes holding the same gentle wisdom they'd come to know so well. Emily and James exchanged a look, understanding passing between them without words. They knew they could never replace Ranger, but they could honor his legacy by sharing the love he had taught them. As they knelt to greet their potential new family member, they felt Ranger's spirit in their hearts, guiding them toward this new chapter. The golden retriever's tail wagged softly, a gesture so familiar it brought tears to their eyes. "What do you think?" James asked softly, watching as Emily reached out to stroke the dog's fur. "I think," she replied, her voice steady despite her tears, "that this is exactly what Ranger would want. For us to keep sharing the kind of love he showed us." Their first year of marriage had been nothing like they'd planned, but it had been everything they needed. Through Ranger's unwavering love and the challenges they'd faced together, they had discovered the true meaning of commitment, the depth of their strength as a couple, and the endless capacity of their hearts to love. As they began the adoption paperwork, they knew that while one chapter was ending, another was beginning. Ranger's legacy would live on, not just in their memories, but in their actions, in their capacity to love, and in their understanding that sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones we never saw coming. Their journey had taught them that true love isn't about perfect moments or carefully planned celebrations. It's about being there for each other through every challenge, finding beauty in the ordinary days, and choosing each other again and again. It's about the kind of love that transforms us, teaches us, and lives on in every life we touch. Dear listeners, we hope this story of Emily, James, and Ranger has touched your hearts as deeply as it has touched ours. Their journey reminds us that true love often appears in unexpected ways and teaches us lessons we never knew we needed to learn. If this story has moved you, please subscribe to our channel for more touching tales that celebrate the power of love in all its forms. Don't forget to leave a like and share your own stories of unconditional love in the comments below. Together, we can continue to spread these messages of hope, devotion, and the extraordinary power of love to transform our lives.